I'm Steve, and this is CC Garage. What's up, YouTube? Well, we're out here in the shop today with the Cummins. We got another upgrade to put in. One thing every diesel needs is a set of gauges. So these are autometer gauges, autometer pillar pod, and all the hardware that we need. One of the first things to do is going to be, you got a 10mm bolt here. You pop this cap off the screwdriver, this 10mm bolt. I've already taken the bolts out. And it just wiggles its way out. So we're going to have to, I don't know how much of this we're going to have to pull apart to actually run wires down. But for my boost line, my EGT, and my trans temp, what I'm going to do is down underneath where this grommet is right here, I'm going to poke a hole in that because that is an easy accessible spot for me to get to under the hood. So if we come on this side, or under the hood to check it out, that cable comes out right here as my finger is. So that'll be really easy to get all of our stuff up here to, well, through the firewall so we can route it. Our boost gauge is going to go back to the back side of our B&D air ram. And obviously, exhaust is on the other side. I think what I'm going to do right now is that kit comes with two different ways. You can either use a 1/8" NPT and tap it, or you can use essentially you just drill a hole in the exhaust, and it's got this little piece right here that fits in there, and then you clamp over top of it. That'll hold it nice and tight. You got your set screw that goes right there that actually holds the probe in place. So here's our trans temp. Hopefully that's the right one. And then here is our boost gauge. Well, pretty much just a line that we're going to need because the back of the gauge that we already have has a push fitting. I got these gauges used, so some of the old boost line, the trans temp, we're going to have to, trans temp. So all of our lights are going to go together. I think on our EGT, our red is going to be, can't remember if it's red or white. One of them is positive, the other one is positive for the lights. So we'll figure that out. But go ahead, we'll squeeze our gauges in here. We're going to run all of our lines through the firewall, and then we'll make a little jumper harness to go for all the lights. And then for the trans temp, we're going to have to look up a diagram for that, but that's the only one that I'm not sure on. So let's go ahead and poke a hole in the firewall. So back inside the truck, I just have a couple screwdrivers. Take and poke through. Use a bigger one to open up the hole. Hopefully that's big enough. Now, the way I want to do this, just a little small flathead that pops out. So there's just a little gap right here. Obviously my wires are going to come up through here, so I'm going to feed the probe down. See if I can grab it from underneath. I just pushed the parking brake down, so that is out of the way. And there we go. So we got that pulled through. Go ahead and pull all the slack through. Well, we'll pull it through later, but go ahead and push our probe back through. I'm going to probably try to put the gauges actually in the pod and start wiring the individual gauges themselves. I'm going to pull our boost line through the exact same hole, run that up, and we're just going to run a spool of wire for the trans temp until I'm able to get under the truck to finish that up. You get your boost line up through the firewall. So on the back of mine, my intake, it's already got this fitting on here. Also, it comes in the autometer kit that we bought. So make sure you put that piece on, and then your ferrule. That goes in. And then your fitting screws down. Make sure you tighten that down with pliers because you don't want that to pull out. So then back on the inside, oop, can't go that way. So we still got our pyrometer. We got to run that to the other side of the engine bay. And pretty much our extra boost tube, which isn't very much, that's up there now. So we're going to go ahead and pull our pyrometer cable through. And then I have the spool of black wire I'm going to use for the transmission temp sensor. So we're just going to pull a bunch of that through just to get it through the firewall. And then I'm going to grab my cart. I'm going to lay under here and figure out where that sensor's got to go. There's the wiring on the back of our gauges. I got my ground. So that is my trans temp. So it's got your ground for your light, your ground for your sensor. Then it comes down to the boost gauge, ground for the light. And then I have my EGT pyrometer spliced into that. Have my ignition wire on the trans temp. And then the boost gauge doesn't use one, so it comes down with pyrometer. And then my white wire is my gauge lighting. So I got my positive, jumps down to the boost gauge, and then splices into the pyrometer. So we are going to get our power from behind the switch. So pretty much just pry back on this. That pops out. So I left myself just enough wire on here. For my trans temp, I'm just going to put a connector on the bottom of this yellow wire, and I will connect that later because I heard the trans temp is actually supposed to be tapped into the pan itself. And I don't feel like doing that right now, so we're just going to go ahead and get this mounted in. So I'm going to go ahead, set the camera down, run my wires through that little, well, I guess not that much of a gap, but tuck my wires, get that in. I think it screws into this bolt right here. And then we'll be back to probe the wires on our headlight switch. So my ground I just have going to one of the dash screws that's in there. My white wire is my gauge lights. That one you want to tap into, it would be the bottom side, the thicker orange wire with the black stripe on it. That one comes on with your light switch. The red wire is my ignition 12 volt. That one I'm going to run over here to my cigarette lighter. So pretty simple to pull this piece off. There is a bolt where that hook is. Take that out and this just pulls right off. These are all mounted. This is for the trans temp. Just got that hanging out there until I actually get the sensor on the trans pan. So for the pyrometer, whatever you want to call it, I actually went to the local shop because they do a lot of diesel stuff, and I think it was $50, and they drilled and tapped that with the hardware that I gave them. So it's been probably about 2 months now, and I haven't had any issues with the gauges working or not. So the trans temp is going to come in time. I didn't really care for the trans temp anyways when I bought this set used, but it came with it, so I'm just going to hook it up. Later on down the road, my plans are to actually build this truck, like get an actual trans for it, bigger turbo, injectors, you know, all the fun stuff, and maybe it'll be as fast as that, or not. It's going to take some money, it's going to take some time, but that's all we got for now. So like, comment, share, subscribe. See you on the next one.